Hello, hello, hello. What's good, y'all? It's your boy 243 back again with another movie review. Now, what movie are we talking about today? Imaginary horror film that came out in March of 2024. Now, let's just get into it, guys, okay? I'm gonna try my best not to spoil. As you all know, that's how I do it, right? So, this movie, first thing I need to say about it, the foreshadowing was excellent for me, okay? Because there were a few glimpses of some details of the future of the film that I saw, but it did not give away everything. So I did have a clue what was going to happen in the future of the film, but I still had questions in my mind as to how it was going to happen. How was it going to occur? So, in my eyes, that is a good way to pull off foreshadowing, right? Because when you foreshadow, you mustn't give everything away, but the viewer must have a clue as to what's going to happen. Now, on top of that foreshadowing, the suspense was great. They created some suspense because they were playing with this element of the childhood element, okay? And whenever you're gonna play with the childhood elements, there's gonna be a sense of curiosity because we associate children with curiosity, right? There's also gonna be a sense of innocence, which is contrasted with the whole horror movie theme, right? So that whole contrast is just it's a good thing to play on because it plays tricks on the mind. It keeps you asking questions because you don't know what's gonna happen or how it's gonna play out because it involves the element of childhood, right? So it can make the film very unpredictable. But at the same time, it's also a trope that is used a lot in horror movies. We see the childhood element used a lot in horror movies, especially, the young girl with the doll, that scary aspect like that. But in this film, it was not too cliche. They used it, they used the trope, and they used it in a good way because the suspense was great. And there were a few jump scares, okay? So, with the jump scares, right, there was also like a few glimpses of Chauncey. If you watch the film, you're gonna know who Chauncey is, right? We did catch a few glimpses of him. If you do notice, because some of these things are like kind of hidden, right? You don't see it right away, but if you do pay attention, you're gonna see it, and it's gonna creep you out because you're just seeing like a small view of Chauncey and no one else is noticing it in the film, right? So it just plays tricks on your mind. It keeps you asking questions, and that's good. The acting was also good. I had no complaints about it, okay? But one thing I do have complaints about, which I'm about to get into right now, I have a lot of complaints about the climax of the film, okay? I have a lot of complaints. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? What I'm about to say is it's kind of gonna be argumentative because maybe they did it on purpose based on the target market of the film. But if I'm just speaking from the perspective of a person who was watching a horror movie, the climax was not as scary as I expected. Okay, the film lost its sense of horror. The full glimpse of Chauncey wasn't scary enough. And I say that because the amount of suspense they built and the curiosity they were building within our minds, right? I was expecting Chauncey to be like something that was gonna spill my tea, all right? Something that was gonna just make me jump out of my seat. You understand what I'm saying? But that's not the case. The climax was just not there. They took us to another world, which was called Never Ever World, right? And even the design of that world itself, it could have been scarier, it could have been creepier. So the whole climax of the film just kind of made the build up lose its weight. I feel like they were very strong with the build up, and then when it came to actually showing us what they were building up to, it just, I don't know, they I don't know. I don't know how I can say it. They lost their courage, I think, because the build up of the film had the expectations that I had for this villain. They just did not match. They did not match up to it. Okay. But one thing I will say about the climax of the film, it had some great plot twists. One of the characters, the old granny, she was a plot twist, and it was foreshadowed by her obsession with the never ever world. So if you watch the film, I don't know if you're gonna notice, but her obsession with this world, it showed me that it's not the good kind of obsession, you know. So them seeking help from her, I knew that it was not gonna end very good. I knew there was gonna be something there with that granny, you know. So probably they gave away that plot twist with with the foreshadowing. Sorry, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It was probably done on purpose, but I knew even before that granny was gonna have a plot twist attached to her. And she did have a plot twist attached to her. Unfortunately for the characters, they only figured it out when it was too late. But they are the characters, so it's fine. They were not supposed to figure it out when I did, right? Now, another plot twist was when the main character, Jess, thought she was out of the never ever world, but she wasn't. Now, that was a good plot twist because it gave the impression that the worst was over. But no, that wasn't the case. Actually, the worst was still to come, or the worst according to them. Because if I can remind you, the whole never ever world and seeing Chauncey in full was not scary enough for me. But the story was still good. The storyline was good. And so, you know how when you watch a movie, the best way to watch a movie is to not look at the time frame. You just need to zone out of the time frame and immerse yourself in the movie so that the movie gives you the sense of time, so that the only sense of time that you have is within the movie, so that the movie the movie will then dictate how you are supposed to feel. The movie will then dictate if you can feel the climax, if you can feel that we are towards the end, right? So you have to immerse yourself. And I was immersed in the movie. And at some point I felt like, okay, the worst is over. The movie is coming to an end. And then boom, plot twist. It's not coming to an end. There's still more to come. So that was good for me. That was an excellent plot twist for me. I loved it. And then another thing I gotta say is the creatures of Never Ever World were not as scary as the glimpses of Chauncey in the build up of the story. This is my one big complaint, right? This is my one big complaint about this. The climax of the film, when we got to the part where we actually see the villain in full, the villain was just not scary enough the way I see it. And I'm gonna say this again. Maybe that was intentional because of the target market, the target audience of the film. Maybe they were targeting like young teenagers or people who are not like, maybe they were not targeting me or us, people who are looking for like a strong horror movie, people who are fanatics of horror, people who want to see the gore and all that. And I understand that sometimes they can go overboard. Horror movies, they can go overboard with the gore and just do too much, right? But that's only bad when you are not that's only bad when it's not expected. And I may be contradicting myself here by saying there should be something you expect in a movie. No, no, no. What I mean to say about that is, you see the gore and the horror stuff, all the blood, all the graphics, all that. It should match the energy that you give us in the beginning of the film and the way you build up the film. And the way this film was built up, it made me feel like Chauncey is some kind of a menace. I felt like I was gonna see something that was gonna be all up in my face, right? And then when we get to that point, it's not all up in my face. It's like they are trying to hide all the gore, which makes me think maybe their target market are people who are not supposed to see that, because it just felt like the movie was toned down. It felt like after the film was done, there was some person of authority that came and was like, this is too much, this is too much, remove that, remove that, remove that. Because it just felt so toned down. It felt like there were things that were removed and they were like, no, this is too much, let's remove it because it's not for the audience that we are going for, right? So that's how it felt. So that leads me to this point also of the costumes. The costumes could have been better. They could have been creepier. They could have been, but with these costumes that they were using in the film, using more gore would have balanced it out. But you know what they did? They retracted the gore. It was toned down. And on top of that, the costumes were just not, they were just not scary enough, okay? Like horror movie costumes need to have a certain level of like insanity to it. Like something you would see like, out of an asylum that is filled with like, different kinds of people, supernatural people and stuff like that. When you design a horror movie costume, I think you gotta have that in mind. Unless maybe your horror movie is just, it's just about a real person, maybe a serial killer, so maybe it makes sense to have a costume that is not like out there. Because I mean, we know most serial killers look like normal people, right? Just maybe nerdy with glasses. So it's okay to have a simple costume for a horror movie like that. But if you are doing a horror movie where there is some kind of fictional monster or some kind of freaky thing, okay, I feel like you should go all out with the costume, because the costume helps you freak people out without actually using too much effects, right? So when your costume is good and it's scary on its own, the effects that you use and the graphics of the film combined with that makes the movie great. So their mistake was the costumes were not bad, but they were not scary enough to have such little gore. Okay, with the costumes they were using, they were supposed to turn up the gore like to another level. Okay, or maybe if they wanted to turn down the gore, the costumes were supposed to be different. So that's just how I feel about the movie. The storyline was great. It had emotional value. The main character, she was, yeah, it had emotional value. The storyline was good. I like it. So everything that I've explained in this movie, probably you can get the sense of how I feel about the movie. It was a good watch. It was a good movie for me. Just that it felt like they intentionally toned down the horrific nature of it or lowered the gore, which made it feel like a psychological thriller more than a horror movie, okay? So if I'm watching a horror movie, I need to be horrified by the end of it. All this movie did was thrill me, okay? It gave me a thrill. The suspense gave me feelings of uncertainty and creepiness, which was on point. It was good. So if you were to categorize this as a psychological thriller, that would be perfect, because they do play tricks on the mind. They do all that. They have foreshadowing, these things that play with your subconsciousness, and things that play with your mind. They have all that. Okay, so as a horror movie though, because that's what it's categorized as, right? As a horror movie in general, I have to give it a score of 5.8. And I would have given it a higher score had the movie had a bit more gore and creepy elements within the never ever world that they took us to. The movie would have scored more, because it just lost it lost its sense of horror, is how I feel. And that's why I'm giving it a 5.8 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go watch the film. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And yeah, I'll see you next time.